welcome to the GATE Big Data and AI Forum. My name is Silvia Ilieva, and I am the director of GATE Institute and the moderator of today's event. GATE is the first Big Data and AI Center of Excellence established in Eastern Europe, and it is a joint initiative between with Chalmers University of Technology and Chalmers Industry Technique, and it was institutionalized in 2019 as a purpose-built research institute of Sofia University. And GATE is much more than institute. It is a cause which is a result of hard work, many years hard work, and that was acknowledged and funded both by European program Horizon 2020 and operational program Education and Science for Smart Growth in Bulgaria to boost artificial intelligence and big data development in the country. And today we are happy to have you all in our second annual event, where we will present, we'll share with you what we achieved during this year, and also, we invited our partners and collaborators to exchange ideas and to discuss together how and to show how we may tackle societal challenges in different application domains which GATE is dealing with, future cities, digital health, and intelligent government. And we're having a live program, very intensive. With this year, we'll have 5 panels, 2 today and 3 tomorrow. And also, we will start with some opening notes from high-level officials. And after the panels, we will have opportunity to see our young researchers, their results during this year. And so, to set up the scene, we have here with us Ms. Anna Panagopoulou from European Commission.
Good afternoon to everybody, dear Minister, Director, dear Director of GATE Center, ladies and gentlemen. I'm extremely happy to be with you today and to participate to the opening of the second GATE Big Data and Artificial Intelligence Forum. This event is happening in the context of a twinning project that, as you know, it has been financed under Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program, for establishing the GATE Center of Excellence in Bulgarian Big Data. The project received 15 million euros for Horizon 2020, matched with the 50 million from structural investment funds. And the importance of this type of projects, the teaming projects, is that there are flagships under the widening portfolio of European programs for research and innovation, because we expect that through these projects, we can promote the excellence in the widening countries, and also we can promote the synergies between actors coming from widening countries and also actors coming from the other member states, synergies on important aspects, on important areas for research and innovation and for future policy developments in Europe, such as data, big data, and artificial intelligence. We also believe that the importance of this project is that through the collaboration established, the exchange of best practices, establishing more research interactions between the different actors, it helps the countries from the widening spectrum that they're participating to reduce the innovation divide, in Europe, and to increase the excellence. We expect very much teaming to make and increase scientific capabilities of a country and enable it to engage in a strategic growth path. Through growing scientific capabilities, allow countries to enhance their chances in seeking for competitive funding, such as in the current Horizon Europe program, and also to contribute towards improving the R&I culture of the country. The European Commission is proud to testify a very good progress of the GATE project in Bulgaria, especially since it is the first teaming project of the country. We see it as a real game changer. First, in terms of the project type, as an example of successful synergies within one project of competitive Horizon 2020 and structural funds, but also the subject of GATE project itself, the artificial intelligence, big data. It's not only relevant for the biggest societal challenges today, like green economy and health, but it is also a field of an utmost strategic relevance for the European Union and for digital transformation. GATE shows that R&I investments and reforms can move the country up on the stairways to excellence, and different parts of the government can make this possible, collaborating together with a common agenda. The ideal center of excellence in a decade would be financially sustainable and operating freely and autonomously. This is a crucial condition for the center of excellence to succeed. I would like to conclude by saying the EC is closely following the achievements of the project on the various levels, and it is nice to see the concrete developments. As an example, the constructions of the building, which is a symbol of what can be done when synergies are implemented and governments invest on R&I and in people. Silvia is a very skilled coordinator, and I would like also to thank her for the excellent work. We are proud of supporting this project, and we wish a lot of success to this forum today and tomorrow.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much for these encouraging words and for your warm welcome. And I hope we will be able to see each other in Brussels soon, and we will be able to travel because it was really challenging last years for us. Yeah, it's very happy. And now we continue with the program. Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you.
And before we continue with our program, with the panels, so our next guest, we're happy to have with us Academician Nikolai Denkov, who is Minister of Education and Science. Academician Denkov, yeah, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, I don't hear you, Sylvia, so I guess this was yes.
Yes.
But if you hear me, this will be sufficient, I hope. So it is always a pleasure to be with you together. This is maybe the 5th time where I participate in your events, and there are many reasons for this. The first one is that the topic of your center has been always very interesting to me and my colleagues, and this is very important topic for Bulgaria, not only scientifically, but also as a scientific basis for development of many different applications, and you'll discuss some of them, but there are many others as well. The second reason is that you have your perfect location. You're not only close to the Faculty of Mathematics and Informatics, but also in the center between the faculties of Physics and Chemistry, which gives this synergistic effect of and multiplication effect of developing one branch of science and then following in the other branches of related science. So from this viewpoint, we can expect really a multiplication effect of your efforts. The third reason is that I have been always very much impressed by the skills and the ability of Sylvia and her team to really to make the dreams true. So starting with something that was very elusive in the beginning, that was really a dream, to make it something that has now not only a clear idea and substance, but also taking literally a shape, the shape of the building, the shape of the your core priorities that you define in the discussion today and tomorrow. And all this gives the promise that we'll have a very, very promising and very successful development of your center. So from on our side, I can only state that the Ministry of Education and Science will continue to support this center as it has done in the last years. And I'm sure that we'll have many, many fruits in the next years to discuss together.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now. Thank you very much for your warm words and for your real support during this year. Even you were involved in preparation of the proposal and further in the implementation, and hope that in the next years as a Minister of Education and Science, we will further collaborate and achieve the results for the whole society and the whole scientific community. Thank you very much. And now the next is the rector of Sofia University, Professor Girgikov.
Apologizes that he could not join us at this session, but he sent a welcome note, which we will present now. Please.
Dear official guests, dear audience, Sofia University is acknowledged as an important educational and scientific hub in Bulgaria and the region. The development of several centers of excellence and centers of competence during the last years empowered the role of the university as the leading research institution. Being one of the first research institutes, GATE is a conduit of change and the next steps toward turning the university into innovation-oriented institution. Even more, GATE is the first center of excellence that is focusing its research and innovation endeavors towards big data and AI, and it's the first center in Eastern Europe. GATE is a new institute, but for the 2 years of its existence, GATE managed to significantly strengthen its research potential by hiring high-quality leading researchers and young researchers, not only from Bulgaria, but from all over the world. Elaborated and implemented ambitious and visionary research agenda, which is driven by the global technological trends and national, EU and world research and innovation priorities. Increase the publication intensity with high impact and open access publications. Attract substantial funding for national and international projects, exceeding 2 times the plan for the period. Expand the stakeholders ecosystem and the research network, and strengthen the connections with industry, policymakers, and academia. Establish the foundation of advanced infrastructure to enable its strategic initiatives as the data space and European Digital Innovation Hub. The GATE achievements will be demonstrated throughout the sessions during these 2 days. I would like to take the opportunity to share my appreciation of the hard work and the enthusiasm of the whole GATE team, even in these hard pandemic times. I believe that by conducting responsible research and innovation, and in collaboration with other universities, industry, and public organizations, GATE will achieve high-level research outcomes and real benefit for the society. We are proud that GATE is part of our university, and we will continue to support its activities. A warm welcome to all of you at the event, and I wish you success. Professor Girgikov.
I would like shortly to present you what we achieved during this last year. So please, the presentation. Where we are currently are, we always said that GATE is investment in people. So currently we're 37 people from 8 countries, and we increased compared with the last year. We are working in 4 research areas and covering applying these research results in 4 application domains. Currently, we are having 7 collaborative projects, and later I will present shortly some of them, and further in the panels you will see the results. 3 flagship projects which further will expand in more collaborative projects in larger scale. This year we succeed with 19 publications, which is a significant increase compared to the last year. As about our ecosystem, we are more active members in international associations, which we started last year, our membership, but now we are more active there. And we have more memorandum of understandings with stakeholders, both in Bulgaria and abroad, and many more agreements, mainly with companies which recognized us as a valuable partner. And as for infrastructure, we'll see later the building, where we are with the building, and where we will host the GATE platform and the GATE living labs. As we speak for the people, we currently devoted to create an inclusive and non-discriminatory and multicultural environment in our institute. So now we are having 40% women and 18% international researchers. You see where they are from: Romania, Poland, India, Iran, UK, Nepal, and Malawi. So it's quite international team, and we are having both experienced researchers, which are leading researchers, that's the core team in the institute. Also, we are having young researchers, which are improve their knowledge and skills very fast, and you'll see the results of their work after each of the panels tomorrow, in the day tomorrow. So that is the team which is working in GATE, and here are the application domains and the research areas. We are covering the whole big data value chain, starting with data management, data analytics, data insight, and big data engineering. And we apply all those research in 4 application domains: future cities, digital health, intelligent government, and smart industry. And mainly in data analytics, what we are doing: data modeling, data analysis, reasoning, and GATE is developing more novel, decentralized machine learning algorithms to enable federated learning, which we all speaking nowadays. And also our team is focusing on innovative methods for automatic generation of synthetic data, which is based on the combination of rule-based and statistical and ML methods. So in big data engineering field, we provide the methodological foundation for working on data-centric innovation projects. And within this group, we are supporting the development of GATE data platform, which is utilizing the recent technologies and development and AI, cloud, and edge. And this platform will be our technological infrastructure for further establishment the data spaces in Bulgaria. Now I will present shortly our main projects, which we are proud of. The first application domain is future cities. You see here the young team and the research lead on the left, and here the first flagship project is GATE City Digital Twin project, which we aim to develop a digital twin platform, which will be used for design, exploration, and experimentation of urban environment and processes. And it will be used as a tool for stakeholders engagement and citizens dialogue. And also will semantically enrich these 3D models which are created within City Digital Twin pilot projects. And we are not working alone. In Bulgaria, we are working closely with Sofia municipality, with Sofia Plan, a lot of stakeholders involved. And the 2 other projects are in cooperation with our Swedish partners, with Chalmers Industry Technique and Chalmers University of Technology. And the Digital Twin Cities, it's a center of excellence funded by Vinnova in Sweden. And this project aims to utilize the technology for new approaches in urban planning, design, architecture, and digital construction. And in this project, there is a broad consortium of 30 Swedish and international stakeholders which cooperate in digital twin cities. And GATE is one of these partners. And recently we were involved in a new project which is leading by Chalmers Industry Technique, the Carbonate Project, which aims to adapt and apply machine learning algorithms to extract features from publicly available data sets to enrich these urban digital twin models and to provide optimized renovation measures for decision support. And our next application domain is digital health. Here again you see on the left the current team involved, and our flagship project is for Alzheimer's disease, and the goal is to create a classification of Alzheimer's disease patients and to predict their cognitive decline based on genetic, brain image and phenotype data. And we are applying omics type of analytics utilizing robust AI, ML, and deep learning methods. Also, structural variant detection and analysis of whole genome and whole exome sequencing data, more than 500 terabytes, is a joint work with colleagues from Chalmers and Yale. And we collaborate with them also on filling in missing data to improve analytical and prediction methods. And also with colleagues from Stanford, we are working on structure variant detection for complex events based on next generation sequencing DNA-seq data, which including improvement of machine learning prediction in case of low coverage. The other two projects, which are with national financing within this CogniTwin project, we are working on development of digital twin models of patients with cognitive disorders, which is based on big data and AI methods. And such models identify the causes and trends that lead to deepening the long-term cognitive decline. And the last project is COVID-19 Hub, together with Medical University of Plovdiv for developing AI-based predictive models for this disease. So you see here our partners are from Stanford, Oxford, Yale, and Chalmers, Plovdiv University, Medical University, and many others experts which we have in this field. The next application area is intelligent government. Here we are working mainly on disinformation, where the research priority is dedicated to studying online disinformation in the Balkans and developing new AI methods for large-scale disinformation analysis in Bulgaria and in other Balkan languages, which are low-resourced languages. And we are working to provide tools which facilitate the work of stakeholders, fact-checkers, government agencies, academic, educational institutions, libraries, so there are different stakeholders for our research. But the far-reaching impact of this work will be on all the citizens. And we established this regional multidisciplinary partnership with researchers, fact-checkers, other experts. We are to act as a catalyst and as an amplifier of national and regional actions against disinformation, which on the Balkans we see that there is a lot. And here are, yes, our partners, Ontotex, which we are involved and applying in other projects, and fact-checkers. And you learn more about this work in tomorrow in the third panel. And the other area here, it's social explainable AI, where we started such project in collaboration with strong international team, and it aims to provide a foundation for development of explainable, local, and global AI models, where processes and decisions are transparent, explainable, and tailored to the needs and to constraints of individual users. So GATE within this project is also support democratization of AI, so building decentralized machine learning algorithms that can cope with this distributed collective of local models through federated learning and knowledge distillation. And this collaborative work within Social Explainable AI project will be further presented in the second panel today on trustworthy, ethical, and explainable AI. And the fourth application area is about big data engineering, where the main focus is on development of the GATE platform. And further, we are working on DevOps for DataOps project, which addresses the challenges related to accomplishing continuous delivery of data for data analytics. The research is focused on technologies and tools for creation of data pipelines, data pipeline orchestration, and data pipeline continuous integration using public and private repositories. The other two projects, InterTwin and CyberTwin, are again financed by Bulgaria, by Ministry of Education and Science, but because they were successful at European level. And InterTwin project aims to build excellent data enrichment and semantic interoperability for AI research group within GATE Institute. And the project involves internationally recognized researchers from University of Milano Bicocca, from Norwegian Scientific Institute, SINTEF, and we are having a lot of activities of active know-how transfer, internships, implementation of innovative joint projects, which we already applied at European level. And CyberTwin is project which aims to reinforce the scientific excellence in cybersecurity through such twinning activities between Bulgarian partners and two internationally leading research institutions. And about research publications, so during this second year, we published 18 peer-reviewed publications, where 2 of them were with impact factor, and here you see the different journals and conferences where we succeed to publish our results. Those articles with the impact factor, they're in Mathematics journal, which is also open source, and Journal of Energy and Sources. And also we published in high-level conferences, such as Congress of the International Society for Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing, International Conference on Optimization and Decision Science. We are very proud of these publications of our researchers. And in order to widely disseminate our results, we are publishing in open source and to increase visibility, and 30% of our publications are open source. And as I mentioned, we intensify our membership in Big Data Value Association, and the proof of this active involvement is the special session which we had on 2nd of December previous week, and the topic of the session was data spaces enabling digital twins, where we had our partners and collaborators on this session, and we had a great visibility with more than 1,500 registered participants of this event. And we are following the development of Big Data Value Association for the activities in big data at the European level, especially on data spaces. From last year, we are member of International Data Space Association, where we are hub for Bulgaria. And in our next panel, we will learn more about data spaces, about our involvement and activities. So we, as a GATE, as an institution, are catalyzer for this national endeavor towards data spaces. And also, during this year, we created a consortium about digital innovation hubs with 11 partners on big data, high performance computing, and artificial intelligence. We were nominated at national level, and currently we are preparing application at European level. So the main focus of these activities are to help in this digital transformation, both the industry in one region in Bulgaria, southwestern region with 52 municipalities, and also the municipalities, not only industry, but also municipalities. And, oh, sorry, video, please. As was mentioned also by the Minister Denkov and also by representative from European Commission, Anna, we this year we make this first breakground through for our building. And you see now the process of building, and in this building, it will be home for our researchers, and there will be our innovation labs where people, there is more about the video, not only this, but the other part, not only the groundbreaking event in May. Yeah, here it is. You see how we are dealing with the building, and so hope that very soon we will be able to work there, how it will look like, and in the middle of next year we hope that we will be there, and there will be a possibility to experiment, to demonstrate different technologies. It will be open for students and for other stakeholders. And here is a part of the team, because in these times not everyone is able to participate in our events live, so most of our activities are online, but you see and part of the team. And for the future directions, yes, we hope that based on this new building, the GATE platform, which we already started with the Innovation Lab, where we already started with City Living Lab, where we'll install a lot of sensors in addition to current existing infrastructure in Lozanets district, and it will be part of also our building will be part of this city innovation lab, where we'll collect data and apply in our research. We'll continue our strategy to attract Bulgarians who are working and studying abroad to return. Already we have such examples, and also to attract young people, and to continue with these international researchers which are currently working with us. With the partnership with these current partnerships we have, and further we'll intensify the partnership in collaborative projects, contract projects, such training, education, other activities which we'll have through this digital innovation hub and data spaces. So to apply all this with people and our partners to do this research and innovation in these 4 application domains for the society. So our vision is for the future is that thanks to this GATE rocket, we support the launching of Bulgaria into data spaces. And this is our next panel for data spaces, which will start in a few minutes. Hello again. We are starting with our first panel of Big Data and AI Forum, which is on data spaces, the topic, and it will be moderated by Ed Curry. Ed Curry is leading researcher in Insight Center of Data Analytics. He is vice president of Big Data Value Association, and most important, he's chairing the advisory board of GATE, and he's really our supporter and close friend, and we can always rely on, and very experienced one. So Ed, please start the panel.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Sylvia. So today we're here to talk about data spaces, and data spaces is one of the most interesting and exciting topics that we have today in the European Union. The data policy is very ambitious when it comes to establishing our common European data spaces, and I think for GATE and for regions in Eastern Europe and Central Europe and Western Europe, North and South, data space is the center of our digital infrastructure going forward. So today I'd like to start off with just maybe a couple of quick points on what spaces are and why they're so important to us. What are these things that we have to be concerned about, and how can they actually help us? So what is a data space? Well, there's lots of different terminology around at the moment, and fundamentally when we look at space, we look at an ecosystem of data, and there's different types of platforms that are emerging that help support that. Data are a way for us to be able to manage the life cycle of data within our ecosystem, and supported by what we call data platforms. And currently there's a lot of investment going on now in developing these platforms, and we've seen some of the presentations from GATE and some of the work they're doing there as well. And fundamentally, these data platforms will be able to enable data spaces to allow that sharing and exchange of data between organizations and individuals. But when we actually look at the actual deployment of data spaces, well, we know what the common European data spaces are in terms of the vision from the Commission. They're quite extensively discussed. But we also have other data spaces that are being created as well. Some of them are at different perspectives in terms of the domains that they look at, and also different scales as well. So they could be European-wide, which is the vision of the Commission, but you can also have ones that are maybe focused around our industry or a particular company. And a good example of that in the aviation industry is the idea of Skywise. So Skywise as a type of data space, a data platform that Airbus have put in place to help support the exchange of data and information between all of their different customers and suppliers across the chain, from the moment a manufacturing partner creates a part for the aircraft through to the construction of the aircraft, the operation of that aircraft with airlines, with airports, and with other travel industry professionals. So a data space can be very much focused on an industry to enable that, or a collection of companies. But we can also have other examples from the airline industry as well, where data spaces deployed potentially at a single, and what is an example of data space was deployed at Linate Airport in Milan. That airport and the people that run that airport to manage their water and energy management. So a much scale, a localized deployment of a data space, but still support the exchange of information between organizations and individuals to add value and to be able to optimize the energy efficiency and water management within the airport itself. From an academic point of view, this is the classic academic definition of a data space. It comes from Halvey and Franklin and Mayer in 2006. And what they were looking at there is that a data space is not just a data integration approach, but rather it's a data coexistence approach. It's not just about trying to integrate the data, but how do we make it easier for data to coexist with one another within a space? And that includes the ability to be able to share data, to exchange data. So this is the academic definition, and we can see some important elements here in terms of a data space. From a more industrial perspective, at BDVA, we have a definition that we've defined within our European Governed Data Sharing Space white paper. And here we have, we'll say, a broader perspective of what a data space is. We see that the data space is an umbrella term that corresponds to any ecosystem of data models, data sets, ontologies, data sharing contracts, and we're also looking at how those are mixed with the soft competencies that are needed to ensure that the data is exchanged correctly, that it's done within appropriate regulations. So things like governance, social interactions, business processes. So we data spaces is a much broader set of soft competencies together with technical infrastructure as well. And that's very much what our conversation today is going to be about within this panel. I'm delighted to say we have our keynote presentation from Marcos Matassa from the International Data Space Mission, and Mark will tell us about some of the efforts that are taken in ITSA. Following that, a panel discussion where we'll have contributions from Sylvia, from Steflorga, and then from Rado as well. We'll talk a little bit about some of their experiences and some of their thoughts on data spaces. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Marcos, who will give us our presentation.
Thank you very much, Edward. Thank you very much, Sylvia. And first of all, I would like to say a big thank you to the Gates Institute for inviting us as IDSA to give the keynote presentation. I couldn't imagine a better introduction. Edward set the scene as regards what exactly are data spaces, and I'm going to give you a presentation of how our organization, International Data Space Association, has contributed in the last year and what is our plan for the upcoming years and period to help build data spaces, which is exactly the title of my presentation. So we are strong believers of data sharing being better than playing alone. So we want to highlight as much as we can the value potential that can be created from sharing data with others. And this is exactly what I want to explain a bit in my presentation today. But first, I want to highlight once again the value that GATE brings together with the other hub facilitators for spreading the word, for transferring the knowledge of data spaces the way International Data Space Associations defines them as GATE. The 8 hubs that have been created, we see also other close friends. For example, VTT that will also be presenting. I don't know if it's today or tomorrow in this event, but it's a great, and we are very happy that 2 of our hubs and many more do participate, do such events and help let us participate and also help concepts of data spaces go into countries, create new projects and opportunities for other organizations to come close to our conceptions and leverage from sovereign data sharing, as we call the concept of changing data while keeping control of it, of the usage of it. So I would like to start with a bit overview of where we are right now in the evolution of data spaces. International Data Space Association has been dealing with the concepts of sovereign data exchange for the last 5 years. We have participated in many European research projects. We have contributed to the launch of the first like the mobility data spaces that was launched a few months ago and growing since the day it was announced that it is right now operating. And we've had also a lot of convincing use cases with a big number of industrial partners and research organizations. And it's now time to go for the next step, which is real data space with many data sharing data exchanges. And of course, with a clear business impact. Not that the previous one didn't have one, but we want now to bring together all the endeavors that are, let's say, going for a data space solution, and bring together in domain data spaces, or allow them to move from a data space to another. And this is actually the greatest challenge, and the thing that we want to let's say, help others succeed in the upcoming months. First of all, I will start with this to-do list. So what exactly is IDSA with the reference architecture model that we have defined, looking for. So we are, irrespective of existing technologies and applications, we are talking here about 6 basic functional requirements and the features to be implementing, resulting thereof. So we're talking about the trust that data space enables, the security, being able to explain, find, and understand data, but also the standardized interoperability when needed to exchange, and obviously the adding value that have to do with processing of data, and the trade characteristics of data, making data an asset. So this has been defined, and what we are, and this is exactly what has been defined in the last year, with help from IDSA, is the so-called soft infrastructure. So data spaces as a concept can be created in many domains, in many different smaller groups or bigger groups, but what we want to avoid is the creation of silos again. So it's really important that we have an interoperability between the data spaces being created between the different implementation of data spaces, so that they can comply with a set of agreements that have to do with operational and legal aspects of data spaces. So this soft infrastructure has been something that we have been discussing a lot lately, also with the Open DEI design principles paper that the soft infrastructure was first mentioned, and has to do with our idea of data spaces being a sector agnostic concept. So the requirements and functions from different sectors should be met in the overall concept of data spaces. So creating the soft infrastructure as we define it is not a technological challenge. Technologies, as we also will see in this panel, but also as we saw before in the presentation of Ed, the challenge here is how we can combine the different technologies and decide together on a common framework where data spaces will be interoperable, and where we can, in a coordinated way, realize we have some agreed standards and design principles accepted from all participants. So while this has been something that we have done for use cases, is not yet something the new norm. This is our plan to create the data spaces, interoperability and standardization, creating a soft infrastructure that will be invisible to data space participants, and they will just use the functionalities of it to be on their data spaces that they are linked to, and also be able to switch to another data spaces that is of interest, maybe in another domain. An actual company also being related to the logistic topics can transfer to a logistics data space and share data in it to benefit from this data sharing. So we as IDSA have come up a few years with the reference architectural model, which is our core blueprint for data spaces with detailed specifications on how to perform this sovereign data exchange, as we call it. But next to that, we have what we call a magic triangle, which consists of not only the reference architecture model, but also the certification scheme, which is a third-party conformity that allows added trust and trustworthiness of partners and components in the data space, and the portfolio of open source building blocks that basically brings ideas in commercial setups. Next to that, the IDSA rulebook, basically a book that helps you understand how to implement ideas in the real world. And all this is giving a lot to the world of data spaces in terms of how to enable the interoperability, how to govern a data space, and ensure trust. With all that, we're coming up with a common framework for data spaces. So we have, as I said before, the design principles for data spaces when it comes to how to build data spaces, but we also need a framework that will give an holistic approach on operational legal tech of data spaces and how to operate them. So not only how to build them, but how to operate them and run them. Basically, at the end of the day, this common framework can be used from different data spaces in a way that each data space can get its own customized handbook based on this framework on how exactly this specific data space should be built and run. So what aspects should be covered, what kind of solutions could be used in combination. So as you see on the right down part of the screen, we have some generic building blocks. There are what I said before, the interoperability, trust, data value, and governance aspects of data spaces. And there are different solutions can be used, but what this framework also is planning to make is basically an interoperability between different combination technologies that can be used for different networks. So all these efforts and thinking we have brought as IDSA to the Data Spaces Business Alliance, an alliance that was created a few months ago and consists of BDVA, Fireware, having exactly the goal of making data spaces happen. And the common framework is one of the first activities that we want to let's say enable with we have operationalized in this alliance. We have a big plan. I think that this is too much detail for this event. We have started and crafted a 100-day plan about how we want to start our activities with the rest of the initiatives being the biggest initiatives in Europe right now dealing with data spaces. And we've brought all these together with a team of experts within the data DSPA, the Data Spaces Business Alliance, into 7, let's say, important actions to be taken in this 100 days. And we call them the quick wins within the first days, which have to do with the different hubs that the initiatives have and how they can align. Of course, the architectural coherence between them, the technical architectural coherence, the framework that I just described, and one joint radar. The radar is supposed to be a way to monitor data spaces out that are already promising, and we need to take special care of them to help them go live, or are in different stages and need our help to move forward in the pipeline of being in the position to become data spaces. So we have a specific deployment support that will be activated and will start in the beginning of next year, teaming up for the Data Spaces Support Center and joining data spaces support activities together with a big community of implementation partners that we have with us to do this. So this is the radar, and exactly we can follow here how this can enable, let's say, not only the identification of lighthouse projects, the most important initiatives, the most promising ones, but also enabling the whole matchmaking process. So consortiums and endeavors that are in need of orientation on how they should, what kind of steps they should take next towards bringing their data spaces into the next level for going live with an interpretable solution. So I just forgot to say that this is an open effort already. You can register as a data space or in data spaces that you are aware of to become part of the broader DSPA radar, which already as IDSA we will boost with the data spaces that we already know of and we have in our own IDSA radar. As a final thing, I want to mention a matchmaking event for European data spaces. So the Digital Europe program has announced the CSA calls for February, which will be the first efforts for the support actions for creating domain data spaces in very important areas and domains as announced from the European Commission. And we're doing a matchmaking event when you can pitch and bring your expertise together for this European calls that will finally implement the data strategy for the creation of European domain data spaces. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to participate in the panel afterwards to discuss more about all this.
That's great, Marcos. Thanks very much. A very, very insightful presentation and covers a number of important topics. So the next presenter is actually going to be myself, and I'm going to give a little bit of background on some of the activities that BDVA have been doing in this space, and obviously they could be quite well with what Marcos has talked about in terms of the Data Space Business Alliance. So to kick off, one of the interesting things with data spaces is that there's a large number, it's a very, very ambitious concept. And there's a large number of different types of associated and related concepts with it. So we see it as part of the digital strategy that's coming from Europe. And the notion of public-private partnerships and governance in play there. We have, at the other extreme, we have Gaia X, which is a heavily private initiative driven from private industry, very much looking at the specifications that are required to enable federation. We have IDSA, very much focused on interoperability and delivering and making data spaces real. Fireware, very, very strong in the area of technical components, significant open source already released. And we have a couple of projects as well, EU Hubs for Data, OpenDAI, which are looking at Hubs for Data, looking at bringing together the ecosystem that's required to make these happen. And then we have BDVA as well, then, who's looking at the challenges around the design, standardization, and also some of these non-technical challenges, which are quite important to us and quite core of what we do. So when we look at the work that we've done in BDVA, well, we recognize that there is a challenge that we have. So we have the concept that we have of developing the ecosystem itself and what makes sense around that. But we also have the need to have concrete experimentation, piloting, and learning of lessons. The key thing with BDVA is also that we have always a very, very clear focus on business value, understanding what's the business value we can get here, what's the societal value that we can get. So our goals in these terms are very clear, and we kind of set those out at the start. But what becomes important as well is that we start to align these concept development, these conceptual ideas that we have coming from the ecosystem, coming from all of those different areas together, so that we have clear understanding of what these concepts are, clear definitions, so that people understand them together. At the same time, we need to be learning from the different practices that come out of actually deploying data spaces and putting them into practice, whether they're internally within a corporation or between different organizations sharing data, or within communities of people or organizations. And by looking at these two things together, we're able to actually learn a lot from the conceptual side, and also have that been informed by the actual practice itself, the real lessons that are being learned. What we found is that the most important thing is trust, and Marcos mentioned this as well. But there's also key other areas that we need to look at as well, things like governance, people, data, technology, and organizations. These are the kind of high-level things that emerged within our TF10 task force on data spaces over the last 2 years as it's been working. And from this, the key things that we identified, we captured them, and we actually communicate them in what we call our data sharing wheel. And this basically identifies the core pillars and principles that are needed to have a governed data space that generates value for different sectors and for society. The core thing I'll point out here is trust is at the center. None of this will work unless there's trust by individuals, trust by organizations, trust by regulators. And by looking at the different pillars that we have here around governance, people, organization, technology, and data, we're able to ensure that we actually can generate value through the creation and deployment of data spaces. When we look down at the details of the data sharing wheel, what we see is that, well, technology becomes very important, so that the technical maturity of the solutions is a very important thing, and it's still very much an area where the actual technologies themselves are being developed and being improved. But there is a good level of maturity around these technologies, as we've seen from the IDSA presentation. But other areas need to be considered as well. Things such as organizational innovation. Does your organization know how to work within a data space, or how to develop a data space to derive benefit directly for that organization or for your customers that are working with? So organizational innovation becomes very important, which is beyond just the technical infrastructure that's required there. And fundamentally, to put any of this into practice, skills development becomes critical. How do we ensure that the people inside our organization and the people inside our partner organizations have the appropriate skills and know-how that are needed to implement and to deploy data spaces, but also to be able to get benefit back from it, to be able to actually derive value from the data space that's been deployed. And this is very much what we look at when we talk about the maturity of design of data spaces. So this is an example from software engineering, which is an area that Sylvia is an expert in, but looking at the notion of having different levels of maturity as we approach our data space capabilities and how we develop them, particularly around that organizational aspect, not necessarily around the technologies themselves, but around the practices and the processes that we have inside our organizations, to understand how do we actually improve the design and deployment of our data spaces, and ensure that our organizations are developing the correct capabilities to be able to leverage data spaces and the benefits from them. Within the idea of maturity models, then, this notion of maturity within organization has been something that's been around for quite a long time, and even beyond the software engineering into the areas of general organizational design and management. And typically these types of maturity levels that we look at things like basic ad hoc implementations of these business processes, right up to proactive and optimized versions of those business processes. So how do we understand the different levels of organizational maturity that we can have for our data spaces? And this is very much at the focus of what we were doing in BDVA. What we wanted to do was to understand, from an organizational point of view, how can we identify low priority or low mature processes within a data space, and high maturity processes for data spaces as well. So typically an organization that has low maturity with their data spaces might have uncoordinated projects. They're all isolated with maybe a lack of coherence, low levels of skills, relying on personnel, key individuals that have the expertise, very much kind of reactive in their strategy and planning towards data spaces, having things like vague metrics, low resourcing, static kind of approaches. This would be kind of what we say is a low maturity organization. Whereas a high maturity organization for a data space would have coordinated data space activities across the organization. They have high levels of expertise that's actually spread across teams, not about individuals. You have that organizational wide coverage of that expertise. They're very much proactive in their strategy. They're looking for opportunities. How can we use and how can we innovate with our data space as opposed to just waiting to react to opportunities? They have meaningful metrics, they have efficient resourcing, and they have a comprehensive understanding of how they can benefit from an innovation point of view from leveraging their data space. And this has been the work that we've been doing inside BDVA to understand this from an organizational perspective. So what we've done is we've taken our data sharing wheel, we've taken this notion of an organizational maturity model, and we've started to develop the best practices that are required along these different elements. The key thing here is that there's a little bit of technology in here in terms of high-level enablement, but primarily this maturity model is focusing on things like organizational design, business processes, and they're required to be able to actually implement this and to be able to effectively work with your data space. So very complementary to some of the other activities that are very technology-centric in their focus. What we're now working on is basically an assessment process that helps organizations understand where they are in terms of their data space maturity. So defining the scope and goals of their maturity, understanding where they currently are in terms of their capability, and then trying to develop a capability roadmap to understand how they can develop that capability over time and how they can assess and improve those capabilities for data spaces. As Marcos said at the start, the key movement in this space is the Data Space Business Alliance. It's bringing together all of this expertise from all of these organizations that are out there today, and we're feeding in our expertise in the area of this maturity model into the activities of the Data Space Business Alliance as well. So it's a real fantastic opportunity for us to bring all of this work together from the different organizations. And that's basically a quick summary of what we have within BDVA in terms of developing maturity models and the work that we've been doing on developing our data sharing wheel for data spaces. So with that, what I'll actually do is to pass over to our next speaker, who will be Sylvia, who might give a little bit of reflection about what data spaces mean for Gate and everyone in Sofia. So Sylvia, I shall pass over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. It's a lot of information and it's very valuable, and a lot of association. We ourselves are confused at the beginning with so many associations, and now it's good that they created the alliance, the Big Data Business Alliance. So it's one-stop shop to where we'll find different ingredients for our for data spaces we intend to develop in Bulgaria. We started with. It's my presentation. We started with the membership with the International Data Space Association because, as you've heard, we are working on interoperability. So it's something which we are creating expertise in, and we are following the Big Data Value Task Force 10 about this. So as such facilitator for International Data Space Association, our role at the beginning is to be as a business provider to consult different organizations and to create together this added value, these business models. And also to educate and to bring awareness to people, to share data and to build this trust between organizations and between people, which is a very important first step towards next activities. Also our role is, as a hub, is to facilitate the acceleration of international data space technologies adoption, not only the business cases which we will identify, but the technologies adoptions through providing this technical expertise, which again we're creating this knowledge and competencies ourselves, and having in mind this international data space architecture, components, application and implementation, either ready components or according to the specification which we need to develop ourselves for realization of this either industrial or public or together data spaces. And by advancing this International Data Space Association reference architecture and implementing these respective components, the spaces will be realized as a safe environment, which are guaranteeing that availability, integrity, sovereignty of data sources, and this providing such advanced security mechanisms that are important for industry really to trust and to be involved and to become a data provider. So being such a hub facilitator, we know about these 5 steps to implementation in the data spaces. So in the first 2 steps currently in Bulgaria, where we are having different workshops or dedicated meetings with different stakeholders, either from government, municipalities, from big companies and small and medium enterprises, where to get knowledge and to find their role in the data space, either to be on supply side or to be on the demand side or to be implementation partners, because there are a lot of roles and stakeholders involved in such a data space. And also to create the data sharing use case. So what is the added value to different stakeholders? And after that, to build or to buy the necessary components. So we are following and aware and using some of the fireware components available, and also we are in the process of definition of additional components which we need to develop, which we part of Gate platform. So we are currently in these first 3 steps, both together, Gate and our partners and different stakeholders in the country. And next steps will be to prepare and to certify those components and reference architecture, which we'll implement in a test beds provided by the International Data Space Association, and finally to successfully run such data space. As we've heard that there are a lot of legal and business other issues which how to operate this data space, and what will be the security and other legal issues for sharing data. And as a first step and example in Bulgaria, which is based on our work in this digital twin project, and what we presented also at the Big Data Value Association Forum. So based on this, our aim is to realize a data space which will allow collection, processing, aggregation, and sharing data from the city. We start from the city, and as the previous speakers mentioned, it could be extended and connected with different other data spaces, either energy, either mobility, skills, and others, which are currently emerging in Europe. Tourism, and there are 8-10 different fields which are already defined for future data spaces. And it will be based on understanding the data as a key to inform decision making for different organizations. Also the example Ed made about the companies inside, which are created inside the data space, and also to the valuable, the data to be a valuable resource for innovation and development. So sharing data, it will be a place for innovation for smart and SMEs and other startups and other companies based on this data. And so we would like to and to have conversations already with public, private organizations, public and private data, citizens' data, different sources, providers of data in different areas such as urban and air cleanliness. So we are having data from Meteorological Institute about the weather. We are having data from Environment Agency about the air quality, which we are collecting. Also from Statistical Institute about about demographic data in the city. From Urban Mobility Center about the mobility in the city, and main data are from Sofia municipality about the built environment to set this digital twin. And all those data from different sources we already have are connected and could be used in different use cases, which we are defining and extended, and would like to involve more stakeholders to have additional added value, not only from the organizations which are providing data and citizens, but also others. So these are our first steps towards data space in Bulgaria, and the next speakers from Bulgaria will provide different perspective from government and from industry on this, and hope that as such facilitator in Bulgaria, we will continue to raise knowledge about big data, about data spaces, and we'll start really with the data from the city, which there are a lot of public data also, and with the creation of this City Living Lab, which we are start establishing now, we will collect even more data, and it will be a good example and a pilot project for bigger data space in Bulgaria, and to connect it with already existing data spaces for better use. So that's from my side for now, and I will be happy to participate in the discussion.
That's great, Silvia. Thanks very much. So, as you said there, we're going to now hear from two stakeholders within the local regions. First, we're going to get the government perspective from Svetlana Krukov, and he is from SEGA. So, Svetlana, do you want to kick off with your intervention?
Sure. Thank you, Ed. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Svetlana Kirov, head of data unit at State e-Government Agency in Bulgaria. Thank you for the invitation to the second GATE Big Data and Artificial Intelligence Forum, and the opportunity to present the government perspective relating data spaces initiative and data sharing policy. Because of the time frame, I will skip my personal story about the puzzles. So I want to say that the challenge now faced worldwide is to continue to assemble the data sharing jigsaw puzzle at a rapid pace through developing strategies and using different techniques, technologies and methods, even if sometimes we have to rely on the trial and error method. During my short introduction on this initiative this afternoon, I will provide you with some lessons learned from past activities, opportunities and challenges in the pathway of building and developing data governance and sharing policy, as well as the next steps that the government plans to implement in the field of data as a key capital of society. In the context of the hot news that the Council of the EU and the European Parliament reach a provisional agreement on the Data Governance Act as an important component of the European strategy for data, I would like to emphasize on the following key takeaways, which should be not only lessons learned from the past 10 years of delivering digital public services and opening public data, but also key factors for successful digital government transformation and a new business model for data intermediation. The first takeaway, the implementation of a broad spectrum of different and inconsistent approaches, techniques and technologies to the public sector digitalizations unfortunately led to partial and rather fragmented outcomes. To ensure success, strong and appropriate leadership and government structures are necessary within the public bodies. The strategic asset in the digital industry is the human resource. or more specifically, people who are willing to adapt and learn how to work with new technologies. According to the latest European Commission e-government benchmark report, Bulgaria's result in this particular indicator is at the bottom of the scale. Less than 1/3 of Bulgarians have at least basic digital skills, against 56% average in Europe. Only 11% have basic IT skills, and IT specialists take only 3.3% of people employed between the ages 15 and 74. Should we are to improve our performance in the next decade, the top priority for strategic management must be improving these numbers. The third one, incomplete and inefficient use of the user-centric model and regular consumer needs a new assessment, which includes a whole spectrum of consumers, public administration, business, NGOs, academia, citizens. We all know that the data is an essential resource, as already all said, and when we create data-driven applications which will benefit citizens and business in many ways, we should first identify, assess, and meet a variety of customer and market needs. It is also clear that the future expectations should consider multi-stakeholder governance schemes for the different data spaces. Despite the regulations and requirements in recent years, interoperability between systems is not yet fully achieved. Same goes for registers and technological solutions for fulfilling the potential of a digital transformation of the public and research sectors. It is important to have an effective ex-ante and ex-post controls in order to ensure compliance with the principles and requirements in the development and deployment of the data spaces. The activities we are talking about cannot be improved without a national interoperability reference architecture aligned with the European one. Such project is currently underway, and another one is due to be launched next year in relation to the development of horizontal geospatial information architecture. The second project is in line with the European Commission ELISE project. This project is dedicated to the location interoperability solutions and the results of the work of the United Nations Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management. This brings us to the next slide. Let me try to address some challenges we might face and opportunities we should grasp in the context of data governance and data sharing policy. First, at legal perspective, setting up one of the challenges, already a lot of challenges were mentioned, but now I will give my perspective. Setting up legal obligations and clear conditions when it comes to sensitive data, and considering contractual obligations, including property rights governing data collection, aggregation, use, and disclosure, and this versus the opportunity for creating better and balanced regulation toolbox, which does not hamper but stimulates innovation and research activities in the field of data sharing. At cultural perspective, implementation of working data governance principles to guide responsible data ownership and stewardship, and also supporting a culture where sharing and management of data are part of standard practice, and overcoming the fear that data can be misused or misinterpreted. This versus the opportunity for building trust, already mentioned. This is the most important thing in the deploying the data spaces, building trust, putting the individuals and companies who generate data in the driving seat so they remain in control of the data they create. At financial perspective, reluctance to invest on data sharing because these financial costs are high and might not have an immediate return or quick visible results, and also avoiding real or perceived financial conflicts of interests, versus the opportunity for using and combining investments and funds from the EU budget including from the Recovery and Resilience Facility, from the national budgets, and the private sector contribution. A technical perspective, cybersecurity challenges in the context of storing less data in data centers and more data spreading in a pervasive way closer to user at the edge, and also not enough maturity in syntactic and semantic interoperability layers, also language barriers, especially for the Bulgarian language, versus the opportunity to enable new emerging technologies, data-driven business, and software architecture models and next-generation applications and solutions. And finally, I'd like to present to you the next steps we have considered and should be undertaken. What are the European and national funding programs currently available? Are there any projects initiated or planned under these programs? Signed and planned partnerships, expected results and prototypes we can apply to. Let's start with the funding instrument. Next Generation EU. Its core is the Recovery and Resilience Facility. The funds under this instrument will be distributed according to national recovery and resilience plans. The Bulgarian plan, which is still assessed by the European Commission, consists of 59 investment projects and 46 reforms, which will give Bulgaria's economy, industry and business a push for development towards a highly productive economy, thus creating value-added products. Part of the project which would contribute to data governance and sharing policies and activities are in the field of healthcare, digital skills, environment, climate, and Green Deal public sector. And you can find these projects on the website nextgeneration.bg. Maybe I should mention the public sector projects, technological tool for better strategic planning and management of the implementation of national strategy documents, establishment of a national complex center and network for monitoring, control and management, integrated national cybersecurity system in the Republic of Bulgaria, and digitization of data in the administration containing registry data and digital certification from all registers. The responsible public administration for the last three projects is the state government agency. The program under which Bulgaria will mainly implement the building and development of national data spaces is the Research, Innovation and Digitalization Program from Smart Transformation, which will be funded through the EU cohesion policy. There we can find specific objective to uptake the benefits of digitalizations to citizens, companies, and governments. And priority area 1 is the data as a key capital of society. As the program has not yet been finally approved by the European Commission, I will only mention a few main measures under which we will propose specific projects next year. Increasing of the interoperability and quality of data in the public sector and business. Expansion of the volume and improving the quality of open and spatial data. Building a centralized infrastructure and technological tools for depersonalization and anonymization of sensitive data and creating conditions for their use by citizen, business and academia. Development of reliable, functional and accessible cloud infrastructure and cloud services. Another step in the pathway is creating strategic partnerships. We have already signed such an agreement with GATE, and we have upcoming strategic partnerships with Sofia Plan. This is a municipal enterprise in charge of the spatial and strategic planning of Sofia municipality. And also Sofia Development Associations. This is a resource center for research, analysis, innovations, and experiment, which creates conditions and encourages the constant dialogue between civil society, business, and Sofia municipality, also academic institutions. The main objective of these agreements is to join forces in order to build new models for interaction between higher education, municipality, civil society, and public administration. We also hope to develop and enrich the forms and content of existing partnership models with common aim facilitating and promoting cooperation in activities such as the building and development of data spaces. That brings us to the end of the presentations. I'd like to summarize it by saying that the government role in data governance and sharing policy is really important, and it should be recognized by the responsible digital-minded leaders, because the most important responsibilities every government has towards its citizens are ensuring qualitative and future job-related education and ensuring privacy for all citizens and protecting their data. Thank you very much, and thank you for your feedback.
Thank you very much, Svetlana. I'm very impressed with the level of sophistication and the level of thought that's gone in Bulgaria into actually defining your program, your partnerships. The partnership with GATE is obviously very important, but I think it's very, very impressive, and I'm not sure we're as advanced as that within Ireland, at least. So I think you're doing something very well done. So our next step is to look at a private sector stakeholder from Bulgaria as well. So we're going to have Rado Rizov from Telelink, and Rado is going to give us the perspective from the private side with his intervention. Rado, over to you.
Yep. Thank you, Ed. Thank you all. My name is Radoslav Rizov, and I'm the Strategic Projects Lead at Telelink Business Services. I think we are slightly ahead of the schedule, so I'm going to just give you two examples for a value creation out of the data spaces. I don't have a set presentation, and I'm going to keep it short just for more time to be allocated for the discussion. The first example is called Vehicle to Grid, which is a concept that we've been elaborating and working on. The idea behind is that it will allow us to balance grid through returning energy back to the network from our electricity vehicles sometimes when there is a high consumption, like late night, for example. The idea has been circulating around for maybe 10 years already, but unfortunately, one of the main blockers that has been is the absence of data to be analyzed and used by the stakeholders. The concept in general may exist in and scale up in the context of data being shared between different authorities within a smart city or a mobility data space. Alongside the chain, we have electricity providers, which are the data owners and providers, charging stations, and households and citizens, data providers, on-demand electricity vehicles, universities and academia, which are analyzing the data, payment processor, and of course, governmental authority regulating the entire cycle. In practice, this is a paradigm shift towards a totally new business model that is born out of the data being shared between multi-domain stakeholders. It benefits all stakeholders as it balances the grid, saves money to the electricity operator, citizens earn money, operators of e-vehicles also optimize their bills, and lastly, we save the environment. Additionally, a new technology startup may also arise, which will eventually manage the relationship between the different actors, how the citizens are paid for the electricity, the amount of electricity returned to the grid, electricity operators, etc., etc. Another example is how the of an energy data space will be of a benefit for new business model creation is the ability to receive time data for your energy consumption. This is currently not happening in most of the EU member states due to different regulations, but in general we believe that there is a high potential of having this data at hand and correlating it with, for instance, the energy passport of your building and apply for a bank loan, for instance. There is a potential room for a technological startup also that will manage the entire process and support the data analytics process and comparison between different households and buildings. On the other side, such an initiative will also give municipal authorities ability to access data of energy consumption in real time of their public buildings, compare it and correlate it to the data with other data sources such as emission of CO2 in the atmosphere. The data will also be used for update of existing policy measures for buildings, energy efficiency improvement in the long term. Of course, none of this can happen without the existence of a respective data space, or if it does, it will be a small-scale pilot. We are currently preparing such a project, and we will be very glad to share if it succeeds, manage it within a data space. In general, this also fits in the EU Green Deal aspiration and commitment towards European being the most environmental friendly continent. So these are just the quick two examples of a low-hanging fruits, how we can utilize the existence of EU data spaces, and companies like ours are very much looking forward with high hopes and expectations of the EU data spaces. Thanks for the attention.
Thank you very much, Rado. So I'm going to kick off the questioning. We have about 7 or 8 minutes to have a brief chat. I'm going to go back to Marcus, because Marcus has, through IDSA, they're working across Europe with lots of different organizations, different regions, trying to build data spaces in different sectors. So I'm going to give Marcus the hard question. We've seen what's happening here now in Sofia and in Bulgaria. What do you think are the key kind of challenges that they're going to face based on your experience of seeing data spaces evolve in different parts of Europe? What do you think are the key challenges that need to be overcome or that they need to look at initially?
Thank you very much, Ed. I think, first of all, we have the challenge that everybody right now entering the world of data spaces is facing to understanding the real value. So we have to enable these mechanisms like the maturity models that you presented or other tools that might be out there, and bring them together under a framework that would allow organizations and endeavors to, first of all, understand the business value and what exactly solutions they would need when entering the data space world. And next to that, it's exactly what I mentioned before, the fact that some of these efforts might look, let's say, easy to start with, but if they don't lead into interoperable solutions, this will create, once again, a silo, and this is exactly what we want to avoid. And I find this as a key challenge of our times right now. And exactly the creation of our alliance is something that will try to tackle this, and hopefully we'll end up with interoperable solutions.
Sure. So if I hear that, engaging with the Data Space Business Alliance is an important activity. Okay, very good. Looking at the two stakeholders, the public and private sector, I think it was, I guess, with the positioning of the awareness coming from the public, and I'm impressed that I can see the opportunities of the private side. In terms of making this happen now, I think the plans are there. I think the vision is there from both of you. What do you think are the key enablers? And maybe I might go with Rado first to come from the private side, and then we go back to Stefano from the public side.
Yes, so definitely a key enabler on our side as a technology company is a necessity to propose and validate more business-oriented cases as an end user. Because in general, we cannot assume that companies and organizations will be able to perceive the actual value of having a data space and the participation in a data space. So in that manner, we do believe we need to provide awareness in the real and actual values of the existence of the data spaces. Additionally,
just to follow up on that,
I think that Additionally, I think that dedicated trainings and focused promotion schemes may also be included, alongside with some kind of a grant allow SMEs to adopt the data spaces and what they have as a benefit for them.
Okay, great. So training, proof points, engagement for SMEs, smaller organizations, absolutely. And then Svetlana, from the public side, what do you think could be the key enablers? And you have a very clear vision of where you're going. Anything that you think could help with this?
I hope, as I emphasized earlier, short is the digital-minded leadership and data skills. But I just want to say that, first of all, identifying the challenges, risks, and current barriers for building and developing data spaces. Then, decisive and effective actions and practical skills must be undertaken in order to turn these challenges into opportunities. And also, I want to mention another enablers are building important strategic partnerships and selecting a team with diverse and quality expertise. At last but not at least, if I could refer to Robin Sharma, I don't know if you know this person, Robin Sharma, more leaders without a title. We need more leaders without a title. Thank you.
That's a very nice intervention. So we have about a minute left. I'm going to pass it back to Sylvia, who's potentially somebody who can provide skills, can work with SMEs, can be a strategic partner. Back to the Gates Centre, just maybe to round off the session, Sylvia.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we see us as really one of the enablers to happen these data spaces, just not only as a university to educate, to provide different courses and skills, but as a professional training with different organizations. And I see that the big companies like here, the industry, the government, they are already aware of this. They have they're thinking in this direction. So a lot of work ahead of us, and we need to speed up and to go to the maturity levels fast and integrate with Europe. Not to be the followers anymore, but just to be involved in the trend settings in these interesting times we are living now, where a lot of people are cooperating for the future. As I mentioned, only 20% of available data are used so far, so a lot of challenges ahead, a lot of opportunities for better life for us.
That's great. Thanks very much, Sylvia. And I just like to take the moment to thank all the speakers for their great presentations, the great interventions, and also the very discussion. And I think that's the end of this session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Irana Pavlova. I'm European Projects Manager at GATE, and I will be moderating this session. I come to you with a picture that represents our vision for accepted, understood, trusted, and human-empowering AI. Welcome to our panel on trustworthy, ethical, and explainable AI. We are witnessing the penetration of AI in all the economic sectors and all the social spheres. And this penetration brings a lot of different perspectives. On the positive side, it brings clear benefits. At the sessions tomorrow, you will be able to learn how AI helps us to prevent, to cure diseases such as Alzheimer's, and even to fight pandemics as COVID. And also can help us manage and optimize our complex city environments and to find disinformation and to fight against it. On the other side, it brings a lot of challenges which are related to the legal and ethical implications and also its trustworthiness. There are still many open questions. How to develop AI systems and applications that are transparent and responsive, and how to make people trust in AI and not to perceive it as a threat, how to implement all the recommendations of the European High-Level Working Group on AI that are guiding us towards AI that is human empowering, that is providing for technical robustness and safety, that is ensuring data privacy and protection together with fairness, non-discrimination, diversity, and it's also ensuring transparency, explainability, and accountability. And all of this with the aim to benefit for the people and for the businesses. In order to answer these questions, I have here with me, allow me to use this phrase, even we are not physically together, but we are united by our vision, Anna Falender from AI Sustainability Sweden, Professor Gania Angelova from Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, Anderson Santana de Oliveira from SAP Research, France, and also shortly we'll be joining Andrea Passarella from CNR, Italy. And together with them, we will try to present to you the different views. They will have their presentations, and afterwards, I believe we will have an interesting and insightful discussion. Before in the preparation of this session, we have asked our guests to prepare a small object, an object that they relate to the topic of our session and also to their speeches. So I'm now eager and curious to learn what their objects are. So let us have our first speaker, our keynote, Anna Falender, who is the founder of AI Sustainability Center Sweden. And Anna is also a researcher, a leader, and advisor to the European Parliament on ethical AI. Welcome, Anna. The floor is yours, and please share with us what is your object.
Thank you, Irena, and thank you for inviting me as a keynote. So my object for my keynote and this section is actually these glasses. One perspective on artificial intelligence doesn't form the entire risk exhaustion of the risk landscape. So putting different glasses and seeing different lenses and different perspectives on things is crucial when working with ethical, governing ethical AI.
Thank you very much, Anna. This is
so that is my gadget, and I will put my lenses on top of my head and use my internal integrated perspectives that I have worked with since 2016, and I would want to share my presentation slides. So I am the founder of AI Sustainability Center, and this logo that you see, we want that to be an independent validator or proof of ethical and responsible AI. We believe that we need, or organizations needs, fast, frictionless highways to innovate, and to innovate applications that humans can trust. So AI will be like electricity going forward. We won't even mention it in a business model context, or even in our everyday lives. But there are some things that we need to put into focus before we can embrace AI, and that is what I've been working on since 2016. And now we have a platform for an ethical AI governance platform for screening, assessing, auditing, and mitigating ethical AI. And how do we do this? Well, we do this by three most important things: is that we activate cross-functional teams to govern AI, hence the glasses. And we also dismantle the ethical considerations that you need to unfold if you want to govern AI responsibly. But also we use reporting metrics in order to help the organizations we work with report their ethical AI performance. So we say that we are an organizational orchestration of ethical AI. And when I think about factors driving this, is that it's when it comes to reporting, like why do we have to screen for ethical exposure? Why do we have to assess whether we are under certain regulation, and why do we have to control for it? Well, if it's not regulated, one factor is that it will be regulated. It is coming into force in 2024 by the EU. And the second thing is the ESG, and this is also a very important driver to be able to report your performance on the S and the G, environmental sustainability, social and governance reporting for allocating money and finances in this low rate environment. But we also have the social concern. So that's the three driving forces. And if we come to the next slide, I will talk about what is unique with our approach. We started to looking at this from an organizational and macro economic perspective. We were convinced from the beginning that we were to solve the problem and not just to talk about the problems. And we started with looking at the problem from the root cause in an organization, and looking at these new business models, new data-driven and AI business models. That is, if you have a business model, you decrease the costs, you reduce all spill along the value chains, and you bring up the revenue. So you have by really tailored and deep client relationships. So these business models with these algorithms that are targeted towards profits, efficiency, increased engagement, clicks, the business models, they go on acid. So with that said, there is a new type of negative externality, a new type of digital pollution that we have to measure and incorporate into the business model. So traditional sustainability look at pollution or environmental pollution, and then most of the time the regulators, they regulate, and the consumers, clients, they have a concern. So these two forces, they drive the organizations to integrate this into the business model. The reason that this has taken so long why we've been working in silos for so long is that as AI is different, it is self-scaling and self-learning in a black box. The people that should honor a functioning market economy be able to opt in or opt out based on their preferences, they have asymmetric information. Another thing is that the network economy is based on that people want to be where everyone else is. So the monopoly situation that we encourage, when Facebook does something wrong, there's no alternative to turn to. That's another reason. And the other is that the regulation has also been kind of depending on GDPR, but there hasn't been enough knowledge on how to regulate this accurately or in the right way. So the problem that we are solving at the AI Sustainability Center is that we look at this from a way that you have to comply to upcoming regulation, but there's still business risks that are very special to your own business context that you can't control for if you don't let in cross-functional teams, or if you don't awake the organization for the ethical consideration. So let me just go through how really fast how our methodology works. So we've said that, okay, this dark cloud of negative externality of digital pollution, let's classify these risks. So we took 6 risks, so that it's privacy intrusion, discrimination, lost autonomy, disinformation, fake news, social exclusion, and harm to safety. So with this, all of these glasses and the perspective, we exhausted the risk landscape, and we said, okay, what are the root causes looking from an organizational perspective? And we categorized the 4 unintended pitfalls. So the first one is immature AI or data. So when the data is not sufficient, or the AI for example, hasn't been trained, and there's no market readiness threshold. And the other one is data bias, when the data is not reflecting the reality or the preferred reality, but who's to say, who's to validate the data? And also the bias of the creator, how do you code your values, your organizational values into your AI solutions? And there's so many ethical considerations that we have to dismantle. And also the misuse or overuse of data. So even though you are GDPR compliant, AI can create a lot of privacy intrusion for you. So we said that, okay, we have these risks, but on the other side, there's actually a digital environment that is reflecting what we aim in the physical world. So we turn these risks and we say, what we want privacy, fairness, autonomy, we want information and democracy, we want safety and inclusion. And we say, okay, if we have these pitfalls, we want to achieve those AI ethical declarations. In order to do that, you have to achieve the fundamentals of, and you've heard these terms before, but you have to be able to have explainability in your organization. Not only the tech team, but the legal people have to understand, in the business area. And you need to have transparency to your stakeholders, but also within the people working with the AI. And you need accountability. You need that in your organization, in your processes, someone who's accountable. And then you need the governance. That is a new cross-functional way of working with it. So this is the way we approach it. And please, next slide. I'm soon going to show you the results, because based on this methodology, the next slide says that this is, because what we do is an screening and an assessment, and you all have a choice, because if you continue to pollute, you will get into vast reputational, legal, and financial risks. So human values in AI, that's an opportunity to strengthen brand. It's not about, when you really find out what your weakness are and how you're exposed to risks, you can turn that into a business opportunity and strengthen trust. Most importantly, it's actually very urgent because we have an upcoming regulation and we have to create processes, documentation, and knowledge, and ways to report in order to comply. But next slide, please. When I talked about ethical considerations, I'm going to take this slide before the other. There are the more AI the more ethical considerations on executive levels we have to raise up. There's a trade-off between explainability and accuracy, fairness and precision, profits and values. How many calories do we want to nudge in a recommendation engine? How much credit consumption do I, as a retailer, have as a third-party supplier? How can I sign in to their non-existing ethical principles? So there are a lot of ways you can, in the technical silo, that you can adjust to fairness in the technical silo, but it doesn't relate to the business context and it doesn't relate to the legal landscape. So this is an explanation. This is an example of a sensor AI application that an AI developer would have a fairness tool and hence think we're doing fairness, so we don't have to worry about ethical AI. So there's always a trade-off. So if you discriminate women, you might have super good accuracy. So you have to iterate between those two. But if you don't have the accuracy, depending on how harmful a non-accuracy result could be, it's always depending on the context. Is the patient at home in the sofa running, or is it in the doctor's office? And also when it comes to legal aspect, what does discrimination mean in different contexts? So the next slide, please. This is just to show how we work with these ethical considerations on our ethical platform. But it is so the new black to talk about AI governance and to talk about how you actually have guidelines and framework to have this orchestration that you need. And next slide, please. And we really do think that, I'm going to end in a couple of seconds. We do think that this new proposed legislation on AI, where Margarete Vestager says that we are going to compete with AI innovations where human values are kept. And this will give us competitiveness. And when you have a clear agenda, because critics have said that this will hamper innovation and growth and productivity, and it will hit small companies more than large. I believe that real clarity, and you're guiding companies, if they're small or big, to realize when they not have reputational risks. So I would say, from a competitive perspective and a productive perspective, this is a very good news. Next picture, please. Yeah, so I'm running out of time, but the way that we look at it is to actually encourage companies from the technical, legal, and societal perspective that we look at things to see where do I have high risks AI applications, because you have to then report to an EU database. And when do I have unregulated risks that are business risks, and how can I turn this into a competitive edge and a business opportunity? And how do I audit this? And how do I show the world that we are taking responsible data and AI into standards, processes, and on top of executive agenda? Thank you so much. I will again use these glasses as metaphor, because I have not been able to do this without my multidisciplinary research group at the Royal Institute of technology, and this getting in a group with different sectors, cross industries, cross skills to exhaust the risk landscape here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, for this really comprehensive view and bringing on the table how important it is to discover all the different perspectives, aspects, and level of ethical AI, and how important it is to involve all the stakeholders during this process. And now we will put another glasses, and we are going to a more political perspective, the policymaker perspective. It's my pleasure to introduce Professor Galia Angelova, who is the director of Institute of Information and Communication Technologies at Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. And Galia is also the main driver, the main author of the Bulgarian National AI Strategy. Welcome, Galia, and please share with us what is your object.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation first, and let me say a few words about Bulgaria and where we are. And could you please show my presentation, and I'll show you the object there in the presentation. Oh, the previous slide, perhaps. Thank you. I would like to say a few words how this document was developed and what remains to be done. And in my view, from the academic perspective, let me say what we have to do from now on. Some things are running, others expect to be planned, third expect to be funded. So we are in a dynamic situation where things are moving, and I hope that someday all the things will be convergent, probably in 1 year, and we'll have more normative documents and more clear plans how to act to develop AI. As Anna said, and I'm very grateful for her talk, the European Commission believes that the notion of trustworthy AI will give to Europe substantial priorities and business competitive priorities, just because people like to work with trustful services, products, etc. And we believe that development of legal and ethical framework will give to Europe substantial market gains. And this is something typical, as Anna said, to the European approach to artificial intelligence. Certainly from technological perspective, and from the number, judging from the number of papers, etc., people who work in the area, one can say that the United States and China are winning the race, but we stay on the legal and ethical point of view. What I find also very typical is the engagement of the Commission of the European Union to collect and open publicly high quality big data. And I like very much that the Commission invests so much in the development of data spaces where everybody can have access to high quality data from various domains and exercise to develop new products, new services. This is also something typical for Europe. It's remarkable also for Europe, because I read many strategies during the last year, that we take care, especially for the small and medium-sized enterprises. Very often they have no capacity to develop new products or even to access data. So the Commission engages its services and the states to provide access to everyone to data, to students, to small and mini enterprises, and so on. And only in Europe, in the European normative documents, you find such care about information to all the population, to raise the computer literacy, the literacy in artificial intelligence, to how to teach the people that it is safe and should be accepted. So this is typical for the European document. And certainly when the Commission published all these documents during the last 3 years, it called all the member states to join the effort to support it. And there were many individual activities, like the AI course produced in Finland, for instance, translated to every European languages, which is very good introduction and good explanation to artificial intelligence. So all countries were invited to develop their national strategies. This happened 2018, I think, about 3 years ago. And let me show you what was the situation in April. This is the last document which I saw. This is Annex 2 to the Coordinated Plan on Artificial Intelligence, which was updated, say, 8 months ago. And we see here that, well, it happens rarely, but sometimes it happens. Bulgaria is not the last one who misses documents and national strategies. So our strategy was published, our conception was published last December. Certainly to develop such a document is not an easy task, because it requires engagement of many stakeholders who looked at the things from various perspectives. And that's why people need time to start and to coordinate the efforts. The Bulgarian Academy of Sciences was very inspired, a group of us, that in 2018, a group of French mathematicians, led by the famous mathematician Villani, helped for the development of the French conception to artificial intelligence. And then we said, okay, we also join forces and provide some expert view on what happens in Europe. And in mid-June, 2 years ago, we produced one overview and analysis of the documents published by the Commission, and meanwhile by many other countries like China, in the United States, in Canada. A lot of things were done there. So this is a Canadian picture coming from one Canadian report. 1 year later, we continued studying the document and proposed a preliminary our vision, how was for the development of artificial intelligence could look like, and this happened more than 1 year ago. And based on these documents and our activity, I would say it was the trigger. These documents were broadly discussed. Many people proposed valuable new comments, suggestions. Others criticized us strongly. Anyway, there was lively discussion, and then the Ministry of Transport, Information Technology and Communication joined to this. Actually, they organized this discussion. They changed the administrative and political conception, and actually reflecting all the comments for the discussion, we produced this document, which was approved by the Council of Ministers last December. But there is still no action plan and particular details what will be done year by year and from where the funding will come. Actually, this is the next important question. And when Irena told me that I have to bring a small subject, I said that I bring this illustration, which was created by our colleagues, and which symbolizes our view to artificial intelligence. The human is in front, and the human brain somehow leads, and behind the human stays the avatar of artificial intelligence. So to me, this is the symbol of what will happen in the next, say, 7-10 years, how the concept, the products and services will be implemented, and practically how they will enter our life, still under strict control, at least in Europe, of human beings. And in a sense, this concerns autonomous vehicles as well, although autonomy is another big topic. What is contained in our strategy? At first, the first topic in most of the European strategies is that one needs reliable infrastructure. This is high-performance computing, 5G, internet, data spaces, etc., etc. But this is the obligatory physical prerequisite to talk about advanced artificial intelligence. Second, most countries in Europe, and including Bulgaria, you need to plan strengthening the research capacity, and you need to be ambitious and aim for scientific excellence, because this is also part of the competition in the world. Who will produce better algorithms? Who will cover most advanced topics in reasoning? For instance, using abstraction and novel technologies to integrate the heterogeneous data we have. So this, competition is not only technological, it is also scientific. And the Commission, as well as the countries, considered various measures to strengthen the research capacity and in the integration of European scientists. We see this today in Horizon Europe, with the many projects funded for integration of AI in the other disciplines. Certainly, you have to increase the knowledge about AI in your own country, starting from schools, support the innovation and increase the links between academy and business. Trust in the society is something crucial, at least for Europe. People will not accept these novel trends if they don't feel safety. And something which is also very important and will be not a problem, but a task for small countries like Bulgaria. We have to adopt our legal framework to the European laws that appear. For instance, now we have the proposal of the European Act for Artificial Intelligence, so we have to follow the international regulatory and ethical standards, because some other Bulgarian laws might depend on these changes that will happen. And I would like to finish soon.
To consider the time, please.
The proposal in this strategy was to develop an action plan, as I said, with particular list of things to be done for the first 2 or 3 years, showing the source of financing, and as well as we still negotiate the operational programs and plan for resilience and resilience facility with the European Commission. Perhaps some money could be taken, some funding can be taken from there, but all this is not finished yet, and the process of the negotiation is not finished. A fundamental proposal for Bulgaria was to focus on technological specialization in the field of data economy, because we lack critical mass of leading industrial companies in the AI sector. We have very good companies and very ambitious IT industry, but still, certainly we are a small country with relatively limited capacity. So talking about priorities, we have to select some of them and perhaps not be so active in the others. One of the proposals was to focus on software industry and the application of AI methods in software development when Bulgarian groups have achievements and built-in AI in system for prevention of hybrid attacks. Certainly, at that time when this text was written, the pandemic only started and we proposed to start thinking about AI applications for educational purposes. E-learning was just entering the mass practice, and it was necessary somehow to help people to react to this new trend. In Europe, last year in June, I think, the Commission published a very nice service, a very nice report, how AI applications enter in the public services. And frankly speaking, you see that all over Europe, it is not fast, it is not easy. Most of the countries use chatbots, intelligent digital systems, very rarely image recognition and expert systems. Almost no one uses for public services autonomous vehicles. I think only in one airport in Finland they have autonomous cars driving luggage from the airports to the planes, but mostly these are IT projects dealing with the man-machine dialogues. One big field is the intelligent agriculture. Bulgaria funded 2-3 big projects during the last 1 year in this field. All of them are funded via the Ministry of Education and Science. Today, I would put AI for the Green Deal perhaps as leading priority, but certainly AI applications in healthcare are very important. What are the good chances at the moment? First, we built sufficiently very big infrastructural change using the funds of the European Structural and Cohesion funds. The Ministry of Education and Science constantly increases the investments in large infrastructures in projects related to artificial intelligence. And the new government looks ready for structural changes, establishing ministries and agencies dealing with innovations and e-government. And now we have active support by the EU in many respects. We had the Digital Europe program, Horizon Europe, and also in the framework of all development in Europe, we certainly use the EU documents, and this helps a lot to decide where we go and what we have to do and so on. And probably because of the pandemics, I don't know, but we have a wave of young Bulgarians returning from abroad. So this is something which is important not only for the industrial sector, but also for the academy. As I said, we have successful IT industry, and let me just finish with one amusing report. About 1 year ago, I think also in June, the Commission published a study on the deployment of AI technologies across Europe. From Bulgaria, 380 companies took part in the interviews, and they reported that 54% use at least one AI technology, 31% use at least two technologies, 11% plan to use AI over the next 2 years, and according to this interest shown by companies from small to medium-sized and large companies, we are among the top 3 countries in the EU, and I think this is very promising. Perhaps we are not a big country, but those who are active and even economically active see the necessity of changes and adoption of new technologies. And this is the conclusion. We have a lot of problems, lack of skilled people, as the colleague from the e-government agency said, very low level of computer literacy. You somehow need to start with the basic training, all types of training. The Ministry of Education and Science does a lot in this respect. As I said, there are some political changes, and this requires time. It requires time to prepare the national strategic documents, but I hope that this will happen in the next year. So that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Galia, for your presentation. Indeed, the important first step is already done, but we need to be very active. We need to onboard the industry, the academia, the government as well, in order to do the next steps, which are very important so that Bulgaria can catch up with the European pace. Thank you very much. And now going to a more practical, more industrial perspective. I'm pleased to introduce Anderson Santana de Oliveira, who is a senior researcher at SAP Research, Security Research, and he is also leading the project on Trustworthy AI. Anderson is also working on fair and data-preserving machine algorithms. So Anderson, the floor is yours, and please be very punctual because we are lagging behind the time. And of course, what is your object?
So, yes, I thought about a lot about the question, and I decided to use my smartphone as the object because it's the gateway for entering the digital world, right? You have AI on it, lots of AI, and you can also have extremely good performance in certain tasks. Like you are very satisfied with the AI, like when you dictate and it writes down what you are dictating. It has very good performance, but you can also be very disappointed sometimes with some recommendations you get in several media or social media or in several different feeds, and you ask yourself why I'm getting this, right? What's happening to my data? So I think it's a good example of the state of artificial intelligence today. You have the best, and you can also have the less good stuff, let's say. Today I will talk about Trustworthy, Explainable, and Ethical AI at SAP and many efforts the company has been doing recently on that area. So it can move on to the next slide, please. And there's some advance to the end of the animations. SAP has a product portfolio where we are using AI in several instances, several levels since a few years already. So first, customers can get AI into the standard software that are natively embedded. So for instance, in this first layer, you can see that SAP has several applications where AI is playing a role in automating tasks, reducing errors, accelerating processes, and that comes with no effort as the customers hire these applications and deploy in their companies. They have it out of the box, right? These business applications. But at the same time, at the platform level, SAP is offering AI business services where partners, customers, and our own development organizations can extend existing applications with AI-enabled features in an easy way, in an easy-to-consume way, including low code integrations, right? So you don't need to be necessarily an AI expert to benefit from AI capabilities offered by the business technology platform of SAP using the AI business services that are available there. So you can have several examples like conversational AI, robotic process automation, and the documentation extraction and so on. And finally, at the let's say core level, you have several data tools, data management tools that allows one to integrate link data, process data, and prepare for building machine learning models from scratch. And you can deploy those models in SAP, in the SAP environment, in the SAP platforms, and extend your applications, bringing your own models, let's say. So these many efforts into bringing AI into our products and services have been done in an organized way, following ethical AI principles. So if you can move to the next slide, please. SAP has embraced the ethical AI since the beginning. So several years ago, we started this initiative. We created principles that are well known in the today, right? Driving our AI development. We have created an AI steering committee that is composed by the senior leadership teams, senior leadership leaders from different parts of our organization. The ethical AI principles are backed by the board members, right? So we also created an external AI advisory panel that, by the way, met last week. I was also part of that meeting, and all of these happened before people were talking about an EU regulation about AI, right? So, for instance, the AI ethics panel, advisory panel, has been created in 2018, and these principles are being communicated. Developers are being educated about it, and this has been the drive principles that we have in the company. So if you move to the next slide, right, this has helped us to create not only internal standards, policies, procedures, but also on a more, let's say, educative sense. SAP has created what we call a ethical AI handbook that has been published internally for the whole group of our more than 30,000 developers. So SAP has more than 100,000 worldwide, and in the development organizations have around 30,000 developers. Of course, not all of them are doing AI, but we have been working on a lot on education about these AI principles. And in this handbook, for instance, we are mapping two sets of dimensions here. On the left, you have the ethical AI dimension, and on the right, you have the product development stages, right? The AI system development lifecycle. And in this handbook, you can have clear guidance to different roles involved in these different steps of the product development regarding the intent of an AI systems, the impact that they have. They can have data protection issues, threats, and risks, take into account the societal impact and any disparate impact that can have, that the system may have in different groups of individuals. The guidance on how to contact the internal ethics expert group, and other considerations regarding model performance and how to keep humans in the loop. Very important questions. So there are clear guidance where people can refer to when creating and deploying AI embedded AI-based software in our products and services. So this is overall company effort, right? There are ongoing initiatives regarding Trustworthy AI, and it's a new topic to many organizations. So we are progressing firmly and consistently in those aspects. Now, if we move to the next step, like what our team, cybersecurity research, can do with respect to all of that, right? So we are a team of researchers, and we are working on several aspects of machine learning, either in securing machine learning systems, applying machine learning in security problems. So this is the job of my group. In the Trustworthy AI project in cybersecurity research, we have the goal of supporting responsible AI with technology, because we are technologists, right? We are technical guys, and we do research. We are researchers, so that's the way you can contribute. So the current research focus of this project is on privacy and fairness. So we are investigating how to find the optimal compromise between privacy and utility when you create machine learning models. We are using differential privacy, and differential privacy adds noise to the training process. Therefore, you lose utility. But in order not to compromise the privacy of your system, you need to decide how much noise to add, not to expose the data to attacks, right? To inference attacks, membership inference attacks. So we are working on this. And another topic that we are working on that's more related to preventing biases or reducing biases, how to find the best model architectures that can be trained in a privacy-preserving way, such that the disparate impact that differential privacy can bring to the individuals, to the minorities in the data, can be reduced, right? So these are the two most important research questions we are currently working on in the group. And then to finalize on the next slide, well, I'll be open for questions, and that's my speech today, giving this overview of ethical AI in the company. I also need to mention that the company has made several efforts in explainability, for instance, open sourcing projects about explainability, and our UX design team has done a tremendous effort into creating frameworks where you can integrate explainability into the user interfaces, which is a great job they have done. So so that's it from my part.
Thank you very much, Anderson. It's really impressive how big technology provider like SAP is approaching very responsibly the ethical AI issues, and considering also the fairness and data privacy. And now let's hear the voice of the ones that are responsible for developing advanced algorithms that are providing for explainability and also for transparency. And it's my pleasure to welcome Andrea Passarella, who is the Research Director of Institute of Informatics and Telematics of the National Research Council of Italy. And he is also coordinating the EU-funded Social Explainable AI project, in which we are also collaborating with them. So welcome, Andrea, and what is your object?
Hello, Irena. Hello, everyone. Thanks for your kind introduction. So, my object is this one. Is a couple of I don't know if you can see it. Yes. Okay. Here it is. It is a couple of Bluetooth earphones, and I will explain why it is my object at the end of my talk, if you don't mind. So a little bit of suspense. So let's go to the slides. Okay, so my talk is about explainability in decentralized social artificial intelligence, which is one of the key topics of the project that Irena was mentioning, the Social Explainable AI project, which I'm coordinating and involves also Sofia University and Gate. So where do we start from? We start from the observation that more and more artificial intelligence is decentralizing itself. So we are moving from a technical standpoint from the, let's say, first wave model of artificial intelligence where everything is centralized and where the model is that you push data to a big data center and everything happens there. Towards a model where AI is more decentralized. So in centralized AI, there are several issues. There is a concept that is called data gravity. This comes from a Cisco definition, which basically observes that, okay, the data is not in the center. The data is not in the data center. All the data are actually generated on the user devices, so at the periphery of the network, and have to be brought to the centers. So as the traffic increases, this poses tremendous challenges in managing it from a technical standpoint and also from a non-technical standpoint. There are big privacy issues because basically users lose control of their data in this model, and trustworthiness is also a problem because you actually don't know where your data are stored, how they are used. So think, for example, to all the problems of the social networks in terms of privacy and trustworthiness that we are witnessing today. Also because of these reasons, the model is going to be more and more decentralized, where you don't have to move your data to central locations where they are elaborated, but you keep the data local. And the local devices, such as your smartphones, for example, elaborate them and then collaborate between each other in order to build, to extract knowledge out of the data. So this solves some of the issues that I mentioned, but poses very exciting challenges from a research standpoint, because you don't have anymore a central control point, so you have a distributed controlled system. You might have malicious behaviors because you have many more agents into the picture. And a very interesting challenge that is what we address in the social explainable AI problem is that AI becomes also, there is a social dimension, that human-centric dimension. Because as the data are close to the users that are generating them, and as the models are derived and are built on the user devices, then the user devices become sort of proxies of the users in the cyber environment, and by collaborating with each other, they somehow mimic the way in which their users collaborate and exchange information and trust each other. So basically, the decentralized artificial intelligence ecosystem becomes a social aware environment, because the devices where artificial intelligence agents are running are very close to the users, and the way in which they collaborate should take into account the individual behavior of the users and the social behavior of the users. And this, as I will discuss in the following, addresses also trustworthiness and the human-centric principles. And this is what we investigate in the social artificial intelligence problem. When it comes to explainability, there are many more issues here, because you have the usual issues related to explanation of artificial intelligence models that you also have in centralized settings. But then if you have such a decentralized ecosystem and the different agents that build together a global model, then you have to explain what the global model is, if there is a unique global model. In those systems, sometimes you don't have a unique global model. You might have different models that sort of converge and dominate in different parts of the distributed environment. So at the level, for example, of a social community, one particular model may emerge, that is the sort of agreement between the different agents of that community. And in other parts of your distributed system, other models emerge. So you have to explain why this is the case and what the different models tell to the users. And you might have hierarchies of explanations, because you can aggregate the individual models at the community level, and those models can take decisions that are different from what the local individual models would do, and you have to explain why it is the case. And again, if you move from the community level to a global level, you have other models, possibly different models that you have to explain. So these are the challenges we want to address in this project, Social Explainable AI, which is a 3-year project. which involves partners from across Europe, from Italy, from Austria, from Poland, the UK, Bulgaria, and Estonia. So what is the vision that we take is that, as I say, the future of artificial intelligence is not going to be centralized, but it's going to be a decentralized environment on top where artificial intelligence agents work on individual devices of the individual users and collaborate. So they collaborate on top of a social network that represents not only the communication unities between users, but also their social relationships and therefore their social behavior. And because of that, those systems have to be built by introducing human-centric design principles. So when we build new algorithms in this scenario, we have to factor in the way the humans interact with each other as a way to guide the artificial intelligence models to extract knowledge and to exchange information between them. And very important, we strive to keep explainability at all levels of this complex ecosystem. And in order to do that, we built on 4 pillars. The first one, we call it the PIVE. The second one, the SciGraph. The third one, the collective explainable machine learning level. And the fourth pillar is validation. So let me briefly give you a glimpse of what we address challenges in each of these pillars. So when you go to the PIVE is essentially the first pillar is the one that deals with the local models at the individual devices. And here already the human dimension kicks in, because in our ecosystem, the PIVE, the personal AI valet, how we call it, is essentially a proxy that runs in one of the user personal devices that collects data about the user, derives knowledge out of it through local AI models. But in doing so, it has to take into consideration the way the user behaves individually and socially. And explainability here is if you wish, is the more classical view of explainability. We have local artificial intelligence models that need to be explainable. Then we move to the social network level. So the different PIVEs, so the agents under control of the user, interact with each other. And they exchange either data or local models through this social network. And the way they aggregate the information that comes from the other nodes is a byproduct of the social dimension. So this mimics very well the way we exchange information and extract knowledge by, for example, discussing with each other. When I get some information from one of my best friends, I have a trust level in that information that is different from the case where I get exactly the same information, but from the first person that I encounter in the convenience store close to my house. And why is that the case? Because the social links between me and those two other actors are different. So in Sci, we incorporate these kind of models in the way that nodes exchange models and information between them and build collectively knowledge. And explainability in this case is explainability also by graph analysis, meaning that the structure of the social network of the users is a way also to explain why certain emergent properties emerge out of this system. And at the global level, on top of the SciGraph, we have a global ecosystem where the local models, where we have aggregated model at the community level, and we have global models. As I was saying in the first slide, we have a hierarchy of artificial intelligence component, and we have to make sure that all of them are explainable. So assume, for example, that the model is something that recommends or is a distributed voting system. So the model needs to explain why a certain community has taken a certain choice, which might be different to the choice that a single individual would take in isolation. It might be also different from the choice that will be taken by the entire system made up of different social communities. So this hierarchy of explanation must be explained to the users in order to build trustness in this kind of systems. And of course, there are a lot of issues also related to trustworthiness, to malicious behavior, and so on and so forth to take into consideration. And after developing this algorithm, and this is the last slide, we are going to test them in different use cases, going from traffic optimization, so smart cities environment, to online disinformation, to pandemic control. So this is a very, very bird's eye view on what we are going to do in the next 3 years. Why my gadget of choice is the headphones? Because right now you can think of it as a very, very dumb device. What I do with it is just listening to my music. But in the very near future, even this small gadget will become something that has intelligence in it. And because it is very close to me and I use them so often, daily routine, those dumb devices will be able to interpret the way I interact with others and with the cyber ecosystem. And by incorporating artificial intelligence into them, they will be one of the gateways of myself into this complex social aware artificial intelligence ecosystem. So this is the dimensions that we are going to explore. We are very exciting. We think this is the next wave of artificial intelligence in research, and we are happy to develop this also in collaboration with GATE. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for sharing the challenges, but also the interesting and very promising approaches towards the ethical, the explainable, and the transparent AI. Thank you all for your presentations. Unfortunately, we are a bit lagging behind the time, but I think that it was very important to bring all these interesting, important aspects on the table and to present them to our audience. So I will allow myself just 2 questions, and I will relate them. So we are having here the perspective of the people that are responsible for ensuring that AI is ethical and it's also trustful, but we are missing a bit the perspective of the end users, the people, although we are all using AI in our everyday life and work. So my question is how to make people trust in AI and not too afraid of it, and how to make AI systems more human-centric. And actually the ending questions, we are entering now the festive season, the Christmas season, and if you have one Christmas wish to make for the AI future of our children, what would it be? And maybe we can keep the order that we started. So Anna, please.
Thank you. Actually, what the AI Sustainability Center is about to develop a children's rights lens in our screening. So there will be an auditing and assessment function if it's compliant to children's rights. And my Christmas wish to all children is they will have the same rights in the digital world as in the physical world.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. And Galia, please, what's your view? You're muted, Galia.
For the kids, after all this e-learning and pandemics, to spend 2 weeks without computers.
That's true. Okay, thank you. And Anderson?
Well, for the first question on how to get a user perspective, I think that you need to involve the user from the start, from the first prototypes, from the first mock-ups, proof of concepts of your system, and to involve and to have a more curated data collection, meaning collecting data for the AI models. That's important. I think that's very key. And finally, for the Christmas wish, well, if we could still believe in Santa Claus, I would ask him to finally get us to give us AI that takes us to the next great leap in productivity.
Thank you very much, Anders. And Andrea, please.
Yes, okay, so very briefly, so for the user involvement, this is very central described, and my take is that we need to be able to model the user individual and social behavior and make it a central component of the technical design of AI. This is very key, And it's also a trustworthiness measure, because in that way we make AI more explainable and more trusted, because I mean, it will behave in the same way as the users will behave. So because of that, it will be more trusted. The Christmas wish. So my Christmas wish is for AI itself, and the wish is that it disappears. Not in the sense that we don't use AI anymore, but in the sense that it becomes so trustworthy and so pervasive in our daily life in the good sense. I mean, not in the controlling sense, but it becomes such a natural technology for us that we don't perceive it anymore. There was a famous quote from Mark Weiser from the pervasive computing environment that says pervasive technologies will have to disappear because they will be part of our daily life and we will not even perceive them. And we are almost there with all the IoT gadgets that we have. So my wish is that the same will happen for AI, because it will mean that it will be a trusted technology for all of us.
Thank you very much. These are really, really wonderful wishes, and thank you for your insightful presentations. Actually, I also brought an object with me. These are actually two objects that I would like now to share with you. These are probably the best known two robots, R2-D2 and C-3PO from the Star Wars movie. And at the same time, these robots are the most friendly, the most caring, and the most human empowering ones. So this is my vision for the future of AI. Thank you again for your participation. And thanks for the audience for joining us to understand how industry, researchers, policymakers, and experts, we are all joining forces in order to realize AI that is human empowering, that is trustful, and that is ethical as the main driver of our future, digital future. Thank you.
Okay.
Come here with me, Sylvia.
Thank you again for all moderators, speakers, all participants. Really a very good finish of the day. Today we learned about data spaces, which are the future of Europe. A lot of efforts on this direction. We've heard that trust is in the center of this, and special session devoted to trustworthy, explainable, ethical AI. So thank you very much, and we're continuing tomorrow from 10 Bulgarian time, Eastern European time, which is 9 Central European time, with a special session on digital health. Continuing 11:30 with future cities, and then 2 o'clock in the afternoon with disinformation. Stay with us, and have a nice evening today, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening from us as well.